Hi, welcome to Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and thanks for watching. Well, Governor Rendell continues to push his energy independence ideas. We're going to talk about that with one of his cabinet secretaries, and after that we're going to hear from a local government reform report that will be released, that was released last week, after these words.
This is Pennsylvania Newsmakers, a fast-paced, unrehearsed weekly discussion with and about the leaders who shape your world. And now, here's your host, Terry Madonna.
Hi, welcome back to the program, and thanks for watching. Well, listen, if you've followed the governor's proposals, he made a whole series of sweeping reform ideas on actually February 6th. No, February 6th, wasn't it, Mr. Secretary? February 6th, before the Pennsylvania General Assembly, has a lot of new initiatives in those proposals. One of them has to do with energy. We're fortunate today to have Dennis Yablonsky. He's the Secretary of Community and Economic Development. He's been on the program many times before. Welcome, Mr. Secretary.
Good to be back.
All right, you get the job of dealing with the governor's energy. We've, by the way, been doing a whole series of programs on governor's various initiatives. We dealt with health care. We've dealt with of course, lease the turnpike, which is always, which is a little controversial. You get the job, I guess, today of talking about the governor's energy program. Right. Is that correct?
That's correct.
That's why we're here. Maybe we'll talk about the Jonas Salk initiative. We dealt with that before. All right, the governor, let me just lay out the basic thing. The governor's idea is we can become more energy independent. At the same time, we can become more environmentally friendly. Is that basically the gist of it?
That plus we can generate jobs and economic activity by actively participating in clean and renewable sources of energy.
All right, well, let's start with let's just run down the features, the main features of what the governor wants to do. Go ahead.
Yeah, there's three goals. One, we want to reduce energy costs by about $1 billion a year through various conservation methods. Two, we want to significantly reduce our dependence on foreign oil by growing our own alternative sources like ethanol and biofuels. And three, we want to actively promote Pennsylvania as a place to do energy business, solar, wind, clean coal, et cetera, and grow about 13,000 new jobs in the process. All
right, let's talk specifically now. Let's talk about specific ways that you think energy costs can be saved. I mean, are there give us some examples of programs that you all are working with at the moment.
Yeah, let me start with a typical homeowner and some of the things we're proposing there. Number one, there would be what we call a cool appliance swap as part of our program that would provide rebates for people to purchase new, modern, efficient air conditioners and refrigerators. And we're offering, as part of our program, a $100 rebate. That would be one. Right. Second, we're providing rebates of up to 50% in the program for the purchase and installation of solar systems, which can substantially reduce. It's a free, clean source of energy. And then third, one of the interesting ideas, just what's called smart meters. It's a way for people to monitor their energy use and take advantage of lower cost periods of time. A good example here local, the local rural co-op. Energy co-op here in the central part of the state, they monitor hot water heaters, and they know when people are at work. They just dial down the hot water heaters during the day. It saves 12% of the overall energy demand, just doing something as simple as that.
Yeah, I mean, you can even get thermostats that raise and lower the temperature in the room automatically instead of like setting it at one setting, which I guess we all do. And I think my wife, we actually did do that, by the way. So we're partly into your program.
Thank you,
Mr. Secretary. All right, let's. Another idea then is to grow new energy sources. I mean, Pennsylvania, old industrial state. We used to do a lot of coal and oil.
Right.
I know that the governor's been heavily into taking the residue from coal, turning it into more usable forms of energy today that are clean and safe.
Right.
But specifically, give me some other examples so our viewers have some sense about what you want to do here.
Sure. I mean, coal can now be burned cleanly and cost effectively because of the rise in the price of oil in the last few years. And Pennsylvania not only has a lot of active coal mines that can be utilized, we have a lot of piles of what they call waste coal, which can be burned. The first major national waste coal project is underway in Schuylkill County, and that particular project will turn it into biofuel. But you can also use coal for creating.
That's the one that got a lot of national attention,
exactly.
Right?
Yeah, that's exactly that project, and it's a significant project in terms of jobs, investment, but more importantly, creating using old waste coal as a way of creating new environmentally friendly fuels. Also, the whole ethanol area is becoming very important, and ethanol now is primarily made in the United States from corn, but there's a new way of doing it. They call it cellulosic.
That's strawgrass?
Yes, strawgrass and wood chips and so forth. And once again, Pennsylvania has a lot of that around
I've actually
and available.
talked with some people, and I'm not an expert in this, but I've chatted with some people who know more about it than I'll ever know, who say they like the idea of using strawgrass because then you don't get into the business of what happens to corn and the competition that would come from corn growers, people who need corn for different reasons, if we're turning it into energy as opposed to feed and for consumption, and the strawgrass can be grown cheaper. Now, I'm not an expert on that. Maybe you have some sense about what you think.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly correct. I mean, the competition for the demand for corn is going up substantially because of ethanol needs all across the United States, and that has the potential to raise food prices because it costs more to feed cattle and so forth, and of course costs more to grow. There's less corn to go around, so there is a potential.
Strawgrass apparently can be grown almost anywhere in any environment. I'm not. I do politics. I don't do strawgrass, but you're the expert on that. Go ahead.
Yeah, and it's abundant. It's relatively inexpensive, as are wood chips. With our hardwood industry, have a lot of wood chips. So there are alternative sources that can be turned into ethanol that will not have the same impact as corn. And so while we're supporting the development initially of corn-based ethanol facilities to get the process going, our long-term goal is to really move it to these alternative sources for ethanol production.
All right, we're chatting with Secretary Yablonsky about Governor Rendell's, what shall I say, very ambitious energy program. They don't mind that word. We'll be back in a moment.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry, the statewide voice of business. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by Pennsylvania Medical Society. Doctors and patients, preserve the relationship. And by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business.
Hi, welcome back to the program. We're talking with Secretary Dennis Yablonsky about Governor Rendell's very ambitious energy programs for his second term. It's his second term agenda. He said on this program, and I'm not going to get you in the middle of this, that he wanted this all done by this year. And I know you're going to say you guys can do it, but I keep talking about it being the second term agenda, but don't answer. I don't want to get you in any trouble. I don't want you to contradict the governor. At any rate, let's talk about, now there's a fund that will help, $850 million fund that will help offset some of the costs for this. Go ahead.
Yeah, the proposal was to create the Energy Independence Fund of $850 million, which will be used partly to create more early-stage company activity, creating new technologies like this cellulosic ethanol we talked about earlier. Money, mainly in loan form, for support of major new projects like the one we talked about.
So in other words, if companies are involved in this, they can apply for a loan, I presume a very low interest rate. Now, is that through your agent?
It'll come through the Pennsylvania Energy Development Authority.
Right.
And there's some grant money and mostly loan money. And then there's this cool appliance swap rebates for the appliances, and then the solar rebate program as well, that are all part of that fund.
Now, there's one other aspect of this. I mean, some of this is going to act, and for full disclosure, the governor has proposed that electric bills, in a sense, for consumers would go up a bit in order to help fund some of these programs. Talk about that.
Yeah, we would implement what's commonly called a systems benefit charge. It's a small fee that would go on all electric users, homeowners, small businesses, large businesses, that would pay for the bond that we would issue to generate the $850 million. The typical homeowner would see a 45-cent a month increase in their bill. Mm-hmm. The typical small business about $3, and the typical large business about $74. The good news about that is that we project that the savings that everybody would achieve on energy costs would be in approximately 10 times what they would pay per month in fees. Mm-hmm. So
let's go to the last piece of this. It's reduce reduce our reliance on foreign sources of energy. I mean, everybody wants that. That's a goal. Everybody talks about that. Whether it's achievable or not, I mean, how can little old Pennsylvania, you know, one state out of 50, is your point we need to play our part in that, and if everybody does it, we can do it, or can Pennsylvania put a serious dent into?
Well, we import about 1 billion barrels of oil from the Middle East right now. The state does.
The state does.
And we believe that we can replace that 1 billion barrels with ethanol and biofuel sources over the intermediate term, and literally eliminate our dependence on Middle East foreign oil as a result of that.
Mm-hmm. All right, before we go, we have a couple of minutes left. I want to come back to something we've talked about on the program before, and that's the Jonas Salk Fund. Mm-hmm. Just to be candid with you, though it obviously is an idea that has a lot of merit, and I'll let you talk a little bit about it, it's been something that legislature has just not been willing to do, I think maybe in part because of the competition. First of all, obviously it has to do with, you know, a biomedical research initiative. What would it do exactly?
Well, it would generate 12,000 jobs. It would create 2 million square feet of new research space, and it would allow the university to expand their research faculty by about 500 people. In the end, increasing the level of bioscience research that occurs in the state. That has two impacts. It has an economic impact, but it also has a disease cure impact.
This would go to one university, the University of Pittsburgh, correct?
That's incorrect.
Okay, go ahead.
It would be competitively put out there to all of the major academic research institutions.
Do you think that's part of the problem, that everybody thinks it would go to Pitt, or is that just...
I think people believe that it will go to the top 2 or 3, but in fact, we would have an independent board that would solicit proposals and do a competitive analysis based upon science and on economic impact, and it would end up, certainly institutions like Pitt and Penn and Penn State would be prime recipients of this, but it would be a competitive process.
Okay. Now, in the end, I mean, I was trying to figure out, I mean, why bother given the marketplace? We have all this research being done, and we have some of the best medical schools in the state, as you know. We have a lot of primary research going on in medical areas. Is this fund really necessary, or could the marketplace, or is this just a jump start? I mean, what's the...
Jump start's the right word. This is a very competitive world that these universities are in, fighting for federal money. And the key to getting the federal money is having the researchers and the facilities, the modern facilities. And this will allow us to gain an edge over our competitors.
All right, there you have it. Secretary Yablonsky making his argument for Governor Rendell's energy plan. All right, when we come back, the Pennsylvania Economy League has just issued a new report on local government reform, restructuring of local government, an important report from a major think tank in this state. We'll deal with that subject when we return.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Pennsylvania Credit Union Association, Pennsylvania Credit Unions, where people are worth more than money. And by the Energy Association of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania's energy information source. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the State System of Higher Education, 14 state-owned universities. The state system is the largest provider of higher education in Pennsylvania. And by the Hospital and Health System Association of Pennsylvania, working towards a healthy Pennsylvania.
Hi, welcome back to the program. Joining me now, as sometimes is the case, is Steve Stetler. He's the executive director of the Pennsylvania Economy League, the capital. Is it the capital portion of it?
Yeah, I mean, we have 4 offices, 3 regional offices and the state office, and I'm the executive director of PEL Incorporated, the state office.
I'm glad you got that. I mean, you got, well, no, I mean, now hold on a minute. You guys do reports, you appear, you know, we see Pennsylvania Economy League all over the place. I know Philadelphia is the one maybe that I know best because they're very active in, you know, the reform, in promoting better government in Philadelphia. But we're here to talk to you today specifically about this new report that you just released on restructuring local government. What are the major elements in that report that you released this week?
Well, I want people to understand that this report is, it's part 1 of a 2-part study. And this part really deals with the revenue side of local governments and the problems facing local governments.
Okay.
It's a kind of a warning message. It tells It compares the fiscal health of local communities from 1970 to 2003. And what it shows is that there is a progression towards fiscal unhealth in a lot of municipalities. I mean, we in Pennsylvania just think of it as a city issue. It's not anymore. I mean, it is really, there are boroughs, townships, and almost all the cities who are facing some form of fiscal unhealth right now. And a lot of it is the tools that these municipalities were given, some of them 50 years ago, to deal with governance and providing services to the local people.
Let me make sure I understand this. So what you're saying is that over the course of the last 20 or 30 years, increasingly Pennsylvania's municipalities, whether they be cities or townships, have run into fiscal problems, in part because the tools that they have to govern are old and outdated, and sometimes these are tools that were given to cities and townships and boroughs 30 and 40 and even 50 years ago.
Absolutely.
Is that right?
Absolutely. I mean, you know, you take this study kind of evolved, but at the end, what became very clear to all the people involved with the study was that the revenue tools could not keep pace with the service side of government. And you know, when you look at the stages of health in municipalities in Pennsylvania, we like to draw the state. We kind of think there's 5 stages, and a lot of the municipalities are still fiscally healthy. Don't misunderstand, and the study points this out very clearly. But the problem is, if we don't start making some changes in how local governments operate and how they pay for their services, the stress is going to become greater and greater as years go by. The report does not advocate consolidations, but it does advocate regionalizing and sharing issues and sharing responsibilities so that municipalities can better afford to offer the services. Because what happens is that even as municipalities get more stressed in terms of financial issues, the demand for services never decreases.
So what you're saying basically is that instead of promoting, as some do, that we have too many municipalities, we ought to do more consolidation, politically that's not easy to do, as you know, because the voters in both, let's say you have 2 municipalities that want to merge, the voters in both have to agree, and typically the voters in one won't agree.
Well, it's winners and losers.
Yeah, for winners,
and whoever is perceived as the loser, they're out. They just won't participate.
Right. They'll say no, and that you can't do it. So what you're arguing for is more municipal inter-cooperation, but we've had that idea on the table for a long time. Right.
And some of the rules and laws that govern local municipalities inhibit change.
Okay. So in addition to that intermunicipal cooperation, you're recommending, I guess, then, that the legislature relook at some of the laws that local governments use to function.
Absolutely. In particular, Act 511, which is the revenue side for local municipalities.
And that's called it used to be called the Tax Anything
Act.
That's
local government.
It has a whole list of taxes. It does.
And over time, you know, some of those have been legislated away, and a lot of the taxes are very regressive that are in those. And you know, as a result of what's happened in all 3 levels of local government, school districts. While the report doesn't deal with school districts, really with counties, what it really points out is that cities, boroughs, townships, school districts, and counties are all dependent upon the same tax.
Yep.
And so when you see the pressure on property taxes...
And that makes voters angry.
Absolutely.
I mean, among other things. All right, we're chatting with Steve Stetler. We're getting a little primer here on local government and what could be done to make local government better, and we'll continue with this discussion when we return.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by Highmark Blue Shield, changing the way health plans work for business with a variety of plan options for employers and more choices for employees. Information is available at highmark.com. Have a greater hand in your company's health. And by the Pennsylvania Healthcare Association, the future of long-term care. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Pennsylvania Builders Association, building today for a better tomorrow. And by the Pennsylvania Cyber Charter School, bringing educational innovation and freedom to the children of Pennsylvania.
Hi, welcome back to the program. Well, we're talking about local government changes. We tend to think an awful lot of the federal government, state government, local government has to do a lot with the services that we get and taxes that we pay. And the Pennsylvania Economy League has long stood for sort of examining, studying local government issues. Steve Stetler joins me as sometimes in the case. He knows a lot about public policy. He was, when he was in the State House for many years, he was chairman of the Democratic Policy Committee. You spent a lot of time running around the state studying policy issues, didn't you?
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
You're the right man to talk about these policies. And all right. So the whole gist of it is you think that a number of these laws that basically were created many years ago to help local governments now need to be re-examined because there may be a problem or amendments need to be made so that they can help local governments more than they're helping them now?
Yeah, what we're really trying to do is just trying to head off potential problems down the road. You hear a lot in Pennsylvania about Act 47, distressed municipalities.
Right.
There are cities, there are boroughs in Act 47 today. Really, the goal of this study is to help stop the entrance of more municipalities into Act 47. And we think that by revisiting some of the old pieces of legislation that have an impact on local governance, we might be able to do that. I mean, we truly believe that, like Act 205, which was of 1984, which is a pension bill, which, we hear a lot of talk about pensions.
Oh, yeah, we do.
Pennsylvania has as many public pension plans. I think it has a quarter of all the
and
public pensions.
And a lot of them have a lot of accumulated commitments,
Sure.
sometimes called debt.
Sure. But the issue there is sometimes if two municipalities want to talk about merging police departments, one a regional, one a municipal, the pension laws work against those types of projects. And so we just need to revisit them and modernize some of these pieces of legislation so that the local municipalities have the tools to manage themselves.
Right. We have about 40 seconds left. Where does this study go? What are you going to do with this?
Well, we're releasing it, and at the same time, the Brookings Institution will be coming out with its report card, updating its 2004 study. Penn State's releasing a study on rural issues. We hope that we can educate the public, educate the legislators.
And this will go to the legislature, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, thanks, Steve. Great update. All right, we'll see you next week for another edition of Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and stay well.